When you first get into Warhammer 40K, you are bombarded with all of these names for crazy weapons and insane pieces of technology that would make an orc have a panic attack. From holy bolt guns said to be used by the Emperor himself, actual lightsabers that can cut apart space marines with a single sweep, all the way to warp engines that can relocate entire warp storms across the galaxy. The Imperium is filled to the brim with crazy powerful relics. So in today's video, I have picked my 10 favorite Imperial relics from across the entire 40k setting, and will tell you all about them. We will be going over the Retcon Gun that simply deletes people and characters as if they were never written in the lore at all. God, can somebody use that thing on Leandros already? We will be covering a taser that teleports you into an unknown dimension if you touch it, all the way to the skull of an alien so horrifying that it can instantly shut off any psyker that lays his eyes upon it. As per usual, all sources used will be shown in the bottom left hand corner throughout the video, just in case you want to check out the lore I have used, or just want to read these awesome stories surrounding these powerful relics. I am also under the influence of Grandfather Nurgle while I'm recording this, so apologies if my voice is a little rougher than usual. All that and a whole lot more in today's video. If you like this kind of content, consider becoming a channel member, get access to members only videos, and you will be able to join my official members only Discord for those who want to discuss the lore with me and my community, and want to help choose which video I'll be making next. Alright, enough talking, let's get into the lore. In a setting defined by eternal war, even a weapon as formidable as a bolter might seem a bit underpowered at times. All factions fighting for supremacy in this galaxy are known to use insanely powerful weapons, armor, and pieces of technology. But what are some of the most powerful relics you can find? Some are weapons older than mankind, others are pieces of technology that originate from the war in heaven, forged by actual gods. Other relics are understood as tools with which to smite your enemies. Many Space Marines venerate the war gear they use. Some wield chainswords older than their entire chapter, and another wears a helmet of the most legendary hero the Imperium has ever seen. Hell, there is even a weapon so dangerous that Ferrus Manus, Primarch of the Iron Hands and demigod son of the Emperor, decided to lock it away in a deep vault and never told the Imperium. But starting with number 1, my favorite lore discovery in recent times, and honestly, one of the funniest relics Games Workshop has ever written. Let's take a look at the Phase Taser. Of course, in the grim darkness of the far future, tasers have been turned into weapons, while the Skitarii of the Adeptus Mechanicus are known to wield both taser goads and taser lances with deadly effect. None of them can quite compare to the Phase Taser. The Phase Taser is a relic of Mars, and instead of crackling with deadly surges of energy, it crackles with enough power to shock you out of this dimension. Yes, this miracle of the machine god is a tool that doesn't just tase its targets, but literally bans you from existing within this dimension. Some curious magi theorized that the Phase Taser was not meant to be a tool of war. Maybe it was a mode of transportation or long-term storage. Yet everyone who has ever tried to investigate or experiment on this ancient relic seems to disappear without a trace. So, the prevailing theory among the tech priests is that the Phase Taser is a relic not meant for studying or unlocking the greater secrets of the Omnissiah, but instead to be used by the expendable Skitarii if the need arises. In the hands of a Skitarii Alpha or Sicarian Princeps, the Phase Taser has instantly and permanently transported who knows how many enemies into another dimension. In the 7th edition Skitarii Codex, This effect is also known as interdimensional electrocution, and honestly, that is the greatest effect name I have ever read. Sadly, that is literally all we have on the Phase Taser. It is a fun piece of tech with insane capabilities. Like, with a single touch, you could just delete a Primarch, or any perpetual for that matter. But talking about cool handheld relics, let's turn around and take a look at Eisenhorn's trilogy, where our beloved Inquisitor carries a Sollex-Aegis energy blade, which, yeah, is just 40k's version of a lightsaber. Ever since the earliest days of the Imperium of Man, even before we went into the stars, all sorts of powerful weapons have been designed, produced, and widely used by a plethora of powerful warlords. But one of the rarest power weapons ever made is the Sollex-Aegis energy blade. These power weapons are produced by the divine light of Sollex, a Mechanicus cult, renowned for us being as fanatic and savage as any redemptionist cult of the Imperial Creed. The Sollex are a highly warlike sect who have specialized in the mysteries of photon, laser, and the divine wisdom of light technologies. While the Sollex Magi have created many powerful lasguns and heavy las pistols, the Sollex Energy Blade is perhaps their most esoteric yet powerful creation ever. Unlike other power weapons, these energy blades are a product of the Aegis data fragments recovered by the Sollex during the Age of Strife, and through the use of focusing crystals, can create a blade of coherent high energy plasma, which is materialized from an armored hilt. Oh yes, this is a lightsaber and was created by the most war-loving cult of the entire Adeptus Mechanicus. The Sollex blade creates a blazing and roaring column of blue-white fire, which can essentially cut through nearly any known material. These weapons are extremely rare outside of the Mechanicus, with even the Sollex themselves barely understanding why they work. Well, leaps ahead of most power weapons when it comes to cutting capabilities, a Sollex blade is also quite dangerous to whoever is actually wielding it. The energy blade is known to fluctuate. The laser containment can fail or slip from your grasp, and because this weapon needs to be refueled with fusion canisters, it can run out mid-battle or overheat with prolonged use. Those who wield the Sollex are not only required to specifically train for it, but also to keep a belt of fuel canisters on them, making them an easy target for enemy snipers. But exactly how powerful is a Sollex energy blade? Well, Inquisitor Eisenhorn was known to have used one during his early career. In the capable hands of a skilled Inquisitor, this weapon might even be able to put you on equal footing with a Chaos Space Marine, as seen in Eisenhorn Xenos. I threw myself to my feet, pulling my sword from my webbing. The device is a fine weapon, of the old kind. It has no material blade like other, cruder models I have seen. It is a hilt, 20 centimeters long, inlaid and wound with silver thread, and closing a fusion cell that generates a meter-long blade of coherent light. The Provost of Ingst himself blessed it for me, charging it to protect our brother Eisenhorn, always from the spawn of damnation. I prayed now that he hadn't been wasting his breath. I ignited the blade and fended away the next axe swing. Sparks and metal shrapnel flew from the clash, and the beast's huge strength nearly struck it from my hand. I jumped back a pace or two from the next whistling blow. My head was swimming. Was it the loss of blood or the after effects of that seductive book? Mandragore was incandescent with fury now. I was proving to be annoyingly difficult to slay for a mere mortal. I had a dread feeling it wouldn't last. He rushed me again, towering over me, and I managed to deflect the force of the chain axe, but immediately he brought the butt of the weapon's long haft around and struck me in the chest, sending me flying. I actually left the ground and cleared several meters. I landed hard on my injured shoulder. The pain rendered me insensible for a second. That was all he needed. He crossed the blood-flecked tiles to me in 2 strides, the axe raising in the air as his growl rose in pitch. With a flailing motion, I kicked the necrochook towards him. It struck the toe of one of the great boots. Don't forget what you came for, abomination. Mandragore Carrion, son of Fulgrim, worthy of Sanesh, champion of the Emperor's children, killer of the living, defiler of the dead, keeper of secrets, paused. With a hacking laugh, his soulless eyes never leaving me, he stooped for the book. You counsel well, Inquisitor. His fingers were around the necrotug, the metal shot digits dwarfing it. His voice trilled away, triumph faded from his hideous face, rage drained away, bloodlust dimmed, his mask of skin hung slack from its sutures. The light in his blood-rimmed eyes dulled. The necrotug sank through every fiber and shred of corrupted being, stealing from him all sense of the outside world. I stood, unsteadily, flexed my grip on the power sword, and sheared his head from his shoulders. Before it had even struck the ground, the spinning skull combusted and blazed white hot, dripping liquid flame onto the tiles. The fireball bounced and rolled, rocked over, and consumed itself in a ferocious, dirty fire that swiftly left nothing behind but blackened shards of skull in a smoldering scorch mark. The body remained standing, burning from within the torso, shooting long tongues of sickly green flame up out of the neck cavity. A column of filthy black smoke rose into the still air. The gaudy robes and cloak quickly caught fire, and thick flames enfolded the headless metal rain. At the last moment, I struck off Mandragore's fist with the sword's bright blade, and the necrotug it clutched fell clear of the flames. So a Sollex blade is quite capable of cutting through power armor, and as we see, the moment it cuts through an enemy, it turns the opponent into a white-hot fireball, burning away all of their flesh and turning their bones into liquid ash. Pretty cool and very cinematic. Honestly, this sounds like a weapon that would do incredibly well against Nurgle cultists, plague marines, and maybe even Nurgle demons, if even to burn the corruption away. But going from 2 crazy close combat weapons, let's turn around to a relic tool. A machine designed to stop time around yourself, and essentially allowing you to use cheat codes in any battle. The Adeptus Custodes have always wielded the greatest weapons and armor the Imperium has ever produced, so when it comes to dangerous or useful artifacts and relics, the Imperium generally keeps those within the Imperial Palace itself. Yet a highly overlooked relic that most people seem to have completely forgotten about, except you, AA Tom, is a strange device hanging from the belt of Captain General Trajan Valoris. This device is known as the Moment Shackle, and honestly, it might be the strongest relic GW has ever written. The Moment Shackle is a relic from the Dark Age of technology, which Valoris has taken from the vaults beneath the Imperial Palace. In his capable hands, the relic allows Valoris to trap fragments of temporal energy and turn them to his use. With it, he has been able to remove split-second events from history, or slow localized time flow to such a slow drag it might as well have been frozen. On many occasions, this time shackle has been used to turn horrendous losses into definitive victories. So far, Trajan Valoris has proven to be a dynamic and effective leader of the Adeptus Custodes. However, some claim that the Captain General's proactive nature, which has seen countless threats to Terra exterminated, more blood games being undertaken, and many other plans designed to prepare Terra, was all geared towards laying the groundwork for Roboute Guilliman's return. Considering his use of the Moment Shackle, it might well have been this device that allowed him to foresee the coming of the Great Rift and the return of the Avenging Sun. Now, this is just a personal theory, but I think the wording of the Moment Shackle is rather interesting. In my mind, I see Valoris most commonly entering a losing battle, slowing time down to a crawl, and using the Moment Shackle to ensure victory is won. But does this device actually give him foresight? Well, we don't know. Maybe, perhaps. Sadly, both the lore of Valoris and the Moment Shackle have been a bit stagnant, as their entries in the Custodes Codex have been the same since 8th edition. I have a feeling one of the Codex writers may have gone a bit too far with this device, as being able to cut timeline parts out and having near perfect foresight kind of makes the entire Emperor's foresight being hard to use pointless. As simply put, why didn't the Emperor just pick up this device, see the exact future, and then cut out his death from history, and boom, everything is great? But I digress. This is one of those relics I could see them rewrite in the future, where it isn't as ridiculously powerful as it is right now. Yet it is also a Custodes relic, and that means that they probably get to keep it the way it is right now. Anyways, let's continue with the list. Let's take a look at one of the community's favorite esoteric weapons. Let's take a look at number 4, the Retcon Gun. The Dark Angels have wielded many terrifying weapons throughout the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy. The armories of the Dreadwing contained the worst horrors ever given form through various guns, grenades, and even fully functioning Men of Iron. Watch my Men of Iron video if you haven't already, it's a banger. In fact, it has been stated that not only could the First Legion wage war against the Martian Mechanicum, but they also possessed enough firepower to create a second Old Knight, while many of these weapons remain mysterious and even unnamed. There is a fan favorite dubbed the Retcon Gun by the community. When the Dark Angels flagship, the Invincible Reason, was under attack from the Crave, a horrifying psychic vampire Xenos, a single Dark Angel librarian named Aravane, was required to use this Retcon gun. It was described as a predecessor to the bolt gun, big enough to compete with a heavy bolter. Aravane suspected this weapon was once used by the Men of Iron or some other form of gene-enhanced warrior. The Retcon gun held an ancient Terran stamp no one could read. It and other weapons like it were never even recorded in any STC. Each gun found within the same armory was utterly unique and now property of the Dark Angels. Only the Dreadwing and Ironwing together were allowed to access them, and even then, only the Order of Sandtails was allowed to use them. The Retcon gun and similar weapons not only obliterate your body and soul, but they also erase every aspect of your existence, in every way and form. It erases you from the timeline. Not just that you no longer exist, you never existed in the first place. The librarian even notes that looking at the ammo that gets fed into the Retcon gun physically and mentally hurts him. But let's take a look at when it actually gets fired in the lore. Some poor guys get shot, and yeah, they are retconned out of existence, as seen in Lionel Johnson, Lord of the First. Codicil Aravane frowned, armored by duty as he braced the weight of his gun and targeted the tidal surge of infected crewmen rushing up from the storage bay towards him. He pulled the trigger. A spray of explosive psychoactive rounds incinerated the tightly packed mortals, body and soul, each individual screaming into a pyre that burned across 2 realms. Aravane counted 25 men, armed with stub pistols and wrenches. A second after he had counted them, they were gone, every ripple and echo that suggested they had ever existed eradicated. And even Aravane's eidetic recall struggled to conjure any details of their appearance, except that there had been 25, armed with stub pistols and wrenches. An itch walked up his spine, and in spite of his discipline, Aravane struggled to suppress a shudder as he lowered the weapon and continued his advance. The thing to keep in mind here is the fact that Space Marines have genetically enhanced photographic memories. They remember situations, faces, details, and even bullet types from enemies from over a century ago. But this Dark Angel just looked at these men, took in every detail he needed, pulled the trigger, they disappeared, and he forgot. He understands the before situation, he understands the after image, but when he pulled that trigger, those people were retconned, and it deeply unsettles the Astartes. Sadly, this is once again all we know about this weapon. It hasn't shown up in the lore since then, but in all honesty, I would like them to keep it that way. A Retcon Gun is a dangerous thing to give to writers, or the general community for that matter. Before you know it, Leandros gets removed from every meme, and we can't have that now, can we? But moving on. Number 5. The Skull of the Cacodominus. In the first half of M34, the Black Templars would end the Catalexis heresy by executing the most powerful Xenos the Imperium had ever seen. The Cacodominus was an alien cyborg with such a powerful psychic presence that it was able to overtake and control the populace of over 1300 systems. In the following death scream, the Cacodominus burned out the minds of 1 billion astropaths and even distorted the light of the Astronomicon for multiple hours. Casualties across the Imperium were in the possible trillions as millions upon millions of ships were lost in the warp. Entire subsectors fell into barbarism without the rule of the Adeptus Terra, and this entire event became known as the Howling. To this day, the origins of the Cacodominus remains a mystery. The Black Templars claim to own only a single skull of this entire Xenos race, which they wield as a weapon relic. Although the Ordo Xenos has tried to investigate the matter, they kind of started believing that this may have been a one-off freak accident. Maybe it was some weird Xenos mutant, or maybe there are millions of them out there, and they just haven't shown themselves just yet. Some even suggest the Howling might be the very reason the Black Templars no longer use any librarians. But seeing as to how Rogaldorn treated his psychic sons during the Siege of Terra, I doubt it has anything to do with this monster. In the hands of the Black Templars, the skull of the Cacodominus is a powerful tool against Psykers. Nearby Psykers struggle to use their powers, invoking the perils of the warp on nearly every cast, and turn themselves into screaming demon spawns as their mind explodes with xenologic energies, a truly effective weapon for slaying the witch. If truth be told, I find the Cacodominus an extremely interesting alien, and the Howling is also just super cool. There's actually a bunch of short stories on this subject, so let me know down in the comment section below if you would like to see me make an entire deep dive into the Cacodominus and the Howling, as this beast may have been more powerful than the God Emperor of mankind himself. Alright, so far we have gone over completely unique relics, weapons that maybe 1 or 2 exist in the entire galaxy. Besides the lightsaber, there are a couple dozen of those at best, but I wanted to cover a relic you have definitely seen in your Space Marine Codex, a weapon that a lot of people simply don't actually understand, as you'd be surprised how freaking insane conversion beamers really are. Let's look at number 6, the humble yet devastating conversion beamer. Conversion beamers are incredibly rare pre-heresy artifacts. These powerful energy weapons shoot a projection beam that induces a controlled subatomic reaction in the target, converting its mass into energy. In a way, it activates fusion within the atoms of its enemy, cooking them from the inside and then blowing them up in spectacular fashion. Interestingly, the greater the distance the beam has to travel, the more deadly a blast it produces as the beam grows in power. This might be explained as the focused beam disperses, catches more air molecules, and essentially grows the chain reaction. Of course, these weapons are quite complicated and very dangerous to use. They also need time to gather up power to deliver a terminal point of beam stability. The construction and calibration of these weapons is also extremely difficult, which does not even mention the amount of power needed to fire one. Therefore, these weapons are primarily used in siege warfare or boarding actions, with both tech marines and mechanicum destructors using them to deadly effect. The conversion beamer is also a popular weapon to mount on a vehicle or contemptor dreadnought, which can easily power and fire such an incredibly powerful relic with its atomantic reactor. Perhaps the most infamous user of a conversion beamer is the Master of the Forge for the Astral Claws during the Badab War, Armanius Valtex. As the Astral Claws Chief of Tech Marines, Valtex was entrusted with a device known as the Indynabula Array, which he then incorporated into his personally created conversion beamer. The Indynabula Array has been transformed from a symbol of Valtex's office into a supremely powerful weapon. This ancient machine predates the chapter's founding, making it all the more appropriate that it was combined with a custom conversion beamer. The array is an insanely complex servomechanical device, which is superior to similar devices used by other tech marines. While Valtex might seem encumbered with his conversion beamer, he is far from being exposed or left without a melee weapon. Powered by the same source that gives his conversion beamer its deadly ranged power, the array also comes with plenty of field generators and 2 energy-charged lash tendrils. The lash tendrils in his hands are as dangerous as a power weapon of any other Astartes. But going from the humble conversion beamer all the way to the Ceaseless Pyre, a weapon so powerful it burned an entire Forge world. Number 7. The Ceaseless Pyre. During the Horus Heresy, many worlds were utterly ruined or exterminated, but perhaps the most frightening weapon ever used for this purpose was the Ceaseless Pyre, which burned the Forge world of Omad. This device was brought along by the Iron Hands. It was a type of archaeotech the Imperium had rarely encountered, but it is named in plenty of the chronicles from the histories of Old Night. The Imperium considered this weapon a class of heretic technology known as mimetic annihilators. While a weapon that can literally burn a Forge world might seem no different from other exterminatus grade weaponry, it is in fact so much worse. It is unknown if the Iron Hands understood what they had brought with them, but what is known is that they took it from the vaults of Mimir and defied the wishes of the already dead Pharismanus in doing so. To paint you the full picture of what happened, the loyalists on Omad were being defeated by the Sons of Horus, and a rift of endless demons was being summoned. So the Ceaseless Pyre was turned on, while it burned everything on Omad, destroying entire forge veins, collapsing cities, killing millions of inhabitants. It also spread through the Voxnet. Yeah, this weapon not only destroys a world, burning everything except the bedrock, igniting the oxygen and flash boiling away entire oceans. But it also continues into the space surrounding a planet through any Voxnet. Any voidcraft, planetary outpost, or spacebound installation with any active Vox links was caught in the raging inferno. And yes, an entire fleet of traitor warships was destroyed during this instant. The fire kept spreading into the void until there were no more Vox links to chase. So, with the entire system burned, the fires finally started to die out, except the ones on Omat itself, which continues to be a burning ball of bedrock 10,000 years after the Horus Heresy. The only evidence of this entire story comes from a single satellite that had no active Vox link and a single loyalist Magos who escaped just before the fires began. Absolutely horrifying stuff. So that was the Ceaseless Pyre. In some aspects, it almost sounds like Super Phosphax, which is already Super Napalm. Somehow it burns Vox connections. Absolutely brutal. But now time for number 8, the Voidclaw. Graph weapons are some of the most underappreciated weapons in all of Warhammer 40K, and while I could spend hours talking about those used by the Space Marines, or even the building-sized versions used by the Imperial Navy, there is no better example of the destructive capabilities of gravity weapons than the Voidclaw. The Voidclaw was an ancient device found in the Citadel Vigilant. When Abaddon started his war on Vigilus, the Despoiler's attention was focused on this weapon. Yet instead of finding an Imperial army trying to protect it, it was a gathering of fallen Dark Angels who made the Citadel Vigilant their home. Abaddon, instead of attacking the Fallen, chose to negotiate with them. The weapon at the heart of the Citadel was like no other. It did not fire projectiles, but instead forced a breach into the fabric of space-time itself, focusing a beam of crushing energy upon a single point to open a gravitic anomaly smaller than a pearl. Though tiny, this singularity could bypass all known types of force fields and obliterate a ship if it came into contact with its hull. This weapon could literally destroy anything it was fired at. Anything caught in its pull was doomed without any hope of escape. The Fallen desired to use this weapon against the entire Dark Angel chapter if they could lure them into a trap. Abaddon, however, had another plan, with which he convinced the Fallen to join him. The Fallen were led by a librarian named Osandus, who literally spoke to the spirit of the Voidclaw and did not fully comprehend the weapon. While it was designed to destroy ships instead of armies, Abaddon's plan would see this weapon used to cripple the Imperium. With the blessing of Osandus, the Voidclaw was fired. Its target was a piece of space, equally far from Vigilus and its moon, and as seen in Imperium Nihilus, Vigilus Ablaze, it proved very effective. When unleashed, the Voidclaw had a horribly deleterious effect on Vigilus. Just as a moon affects the waters of the world below, the gravitic anomaly pulled everything upon Vigilus towards it, destroying a great deal in the process. The disruption it caused spiraled quickly to the level of a global catastrophe. The terrifyingly strong lure of the Voidclaw's gravitic singularity, known thenceforth as the Villian anomaly, had countless consequences for the Imperial war effort. The effects were so dire that the Vigilus Senate was flooded with intel from across the world, and the streets of Saints Haven thronged with messengers and petitioners from every active front. Subsidiary war rooms were opened in chambers throughout the governor's palace, each one a triage and solution center for a separate theater of battle. Yet even with Marnius Calgar's prodigious strategic acumen coordinating them, the Imperial commanders found themselves unable to categorize the ever-changing face of the War of Nightmares, let alone reverse its course. By the time one disaster had been reported, two more had begun to unfold. The first to feel the anomaly's baleful pull were the fleets that hung in orbit around Vigilus. In the hours before the Voidclaw's trimming engines had activated, the admirals of the Imperial fleets had watched in confusion as the Chaos ships had changed course, taking up new positions that appeared to have no strategic value. It was Arch-Commodore Venzatorio that first noticed that they were all facing away from the Vullian swirl, but she could not guess why. Only when the graphitic singularity opened did the Imperial admirals realize that the change of orientation was for good reason. The Chaos ships had shifted to points where they could counteract the effects of the anomaly with their engines. The same could not be said for the Imperial fleet. Outrider ships, tugs and cutters that were near the gravity well of the singularity found themselves veering off course to crash into the Leviathan ships they were supposed to be escorting. Planetside, strings of explosions erupted as all manner of hell broke loose. The Vullian swirl was stretched up into a vast spiral. The worst effect of the Vullian anomaly would be when all of the water on the surface of Vigilus was pulled into the atmosphere, into space, and then dragged into the anomaly. Vigilus is a rather important world in the Nachmund Gauntlet, because through this gauntlet, the Imperium can safely travel to and from Imperium Nihilus. So Abaddon wants to destroy it, so Imperium Nihilus can no longer be reinforced. In the end, Marnius Calgar, chapter master of the Ultramarines, shows up on Vigilus to fight the Fallen and Abaddon, trying to destroy the Voidclaw in the process. But for now, let's turn our attention to number 9, the one relic that could have pushed the Eye of Terror to the edge of our galaxy, or with enough time, have closed all warp storms in reality. Let's take a look at the Geller Field's big brother, the Geller device. Now, when I say Geller device, you might think this is just another term for a Geller field or something that produces a Geller field-like effect, which, for those that don't actually know what that means, when an Imperial ship enters the warp, a Geller field is a reality bubble formed around the vessel, so that demons and other evil warp creatures cannot enter nor attack the ship. Essentially a force field against demonic incursions. While the Geller device indeed produces a type of Geller field, it is so much more than just that. The Geller device is a weaponized version of a Geller field. Instead of using it inside the warp to bring a bubble of reality with you into the Sea of Souls, it instead produces a field that actively pushes the warp away. This device was originally used in an attempt by the Adeptus Mechanicus to combat the issues of encroaching warp storms. And the first time it was used, it moved the warp storm, so to speak. But by moving it, the warp storm was relocated to the middle of where the Geller device was deployed. However, while this resulted in an entire Forge World being lost, members of the Adeptus Mechanicus insisted on saving their now corrupted and blighted Forge World. And more importantly, they wanted to do this by using another Geller device. This powerful weapon was still capable of being produced with the STC the Mechanicus have, but Archmagos Tok'Vora had different plans. While the Archmagos believed in the Omnissiah and all of its teachings, he also understood just how dangerous the Mechanicus can be. He knew better than anyone that the biggest flaw of the Priest of Mars is their hubris. So while Tok'Vora explored the galaxy to find and study technology, he also ensured that anything that could doom the galaxy and bring about a new old night was also destroyed. So the Archmagos produced a new Galar device, 10 times the size of the previous one. It should be noted that when activated, the Galar device was also capable of removing chaotic corruption. Now, with his supersized Galar device, Archmagos Tokora would use it to temporarily push out the warp storms from the Satissa system, but due to the larger size of the device, it also kind of destroyed the entire planet it was meant to save. Yeah, they kinda just blew it up. This effectively destroyed both Galar devices, the Forge World, and neutralized the warp storm in the sector. Tokora would not only destroy the STC of the Galar device, but it would also deny the Dark Mechanicum from claiming a Forge World and save loyal subjects from being corrupted by chaos. So, although this was a massive loss for the Imperium, at least they made sure no further harm could fall to the Forge World by destroying it. And for our last main entry on today's top 10 most powerful Imperial relics, let's take a look at the Soulspear, a weapon that caused an entire Space Marine chapter to become renegades. When Rogaldorn split his legion into different chapters, he decided to gift each of them with a personal gift. To the Soul Drinkers, he gave them the Soulspear. The Soul Drinkers were formed from the fleet-based shock attack forces of the Legion. Dorn himself had found the Soulspear on a dark and lonely world during the Great Crusade. With it, he had speared great warp beasts, and from it had hung his banners on 100 worlds, reconquered in the Emperor's name. At least, this is the story taught to the Soul Drinkers when recruited into the chapter. Yet tragedy would strike 1,000 years ago when the Soulspear and the chapter's flagship, the Sanctifier, went missing into the warp. When the Adeptus Administratum discovered the von Scorvold cartel had the weapon in their possession, they would feed this information to the Soul Drinkers. The cartel in question had been given a massive space fort with which to help the Imperium, but instead, the von Scorvolds had betrayed the Imperium. The Administratum hoped that through the Soul Drinkers reclaiming the Soulspear, the space fort could be reclaimed without destroying it, and the cartel executed for their crimes. The Soul Drinkers were glad to do this, but again, tragedy would strike when Archmagos Kobatov stole the relic weapon for himself. The Soulspear was as long as a man's forearm, gloss black, and inlaid with intricate circuitry that shifted and changed before the eye. There were smooth indentations where fingers far larger than a normal man would fit, each one of these with a laser needle surrounded by a ring of gene-sensitive psychoplastic. The Adeptus Mechanicus found the weapon intriguing. It emitted low levels of radiation, made from alloys and high-density ceremoplastics, which the Imperium could no longer produce. The tech priest found it extremely difficult to activate the weapon, and some were convinced it had a powerful and cunning machine soul. When the tech priest finally managed to defeat the gene locks, the Soulspear caused a massive explosion, alerting the entire Forge World of its presence. Tech guards began surrounding the lab where the spear was held inside. Multiple priests had died from the explosion, and the entire room lay in ruins. What the Adeptus Mechanicus learned was that the Soulspear, when activated, would fire 2 vortex fields in a continual stream. Imagine a vortex grenade. You lob it at the enemy, it explodes, and then sucks everything into its dark, vortexing center like a black hole, until nothing remains of the surrounding area. Now take that effect and turn it into a twin laser beam. After this, the Soul Drinkers do end up reclaiming the Soulspear, but as all of this goes down, they fall down the path of damnation. And now, with the resurgence of the Imperium through the Primaris reinforcements, the Soul Drinkers have been reinstated as a loyal chapter. Whether they still hold the Soulspear, we sadly do not know. We have covered 10 insanely powerful relics so far, but there is one extra entry that I really wanted to add to this video. It isn't a weapon, it isn't even a tool, it is a toy. From before our current time, let's take a look at the following excerpt from Pariah, where Beckwin finds an intact toy from the Soviet Union. "Let me show you this," he insisted before I left. A trio of small beige items came out of a cabinet and were laid out on a cloth. They had been white once, but age had darkened them like bone. Their surfaces were worn, but I could still make out the trace of silver on the engine bells and the red markings along the fuselage. Toys? Playthings, models made for a child's amusement. They are of weapon rockets, missiles? Rockets for spaceflight. Don't look so surprised, Mamsel Reside. The first steps from Terra were said to have been taken using chemical rockets. I am aware of history, sir, even though the details of the oldest eras is lost in the mist. But really? Vehicles this crude? I do not think they ever flew. I think these are simplified models of possible machines, a primitive idea of flight, but I show them to you because of their age. Your employer is very fond of the oldest things. How old? It can only be estimated. They predate the ages of strife and technology. I think they come from the pre-system age, from the first millennium of the Age of Terra. What? 38 or 39,000 years ago? Perhaps. Vessels like this first took our species into the unknown. They first took us blackwards. The family name behind this business comes from that outward urge. I think my employer will appreciate these. What price do you ask? I will write it down. And the markings on the side of the rocket ships, the letters in red, what does CCCP mean? No one knows that. No one remembers anymore. I just wanted to note on that, as it's absolutely insane. How does a toy from the 1900s survive into the 41st millennium? What is that thing made of? It isn't exactly useful, but it is a fun reminder that some of the things we made in our current day have a chance of surviving into the grim darkness of the far future. But what do you think of all of this? Which of the Imperial Relics we have covered so far is your favorite and why? If you could pick any of these relics, which one would you use for yourself and why? And do you think the Imperium should research these relics and try to make more? Or keep them the way they are now? Because in the grim darkness of the far future, so much has been forgotten, never to be relearned. Let me know your comments, concerns, suggestions, theories and ideas down in the comment section below. If you think I deserved it with this video, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. It helps push this video into the algorithm and it would make me very happy. Thank you for watching and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one. Bye bye.